The last time I owned an AMD processor was with the old Athlon 64 3700 Plus. I think it was 2.2 or 2.4 gigahertz. Single core processor, not that multi-core goodness that we're all used to nowadays, but it was 64-bit. Not that 32-bit junk, which was in 2005? 13 years ago. I was 21 at the time. Since then, I've used Intel processors until now. After 5 months with AMD, I can finally tell you what's the deal with Ryzen. Now, 3.5 months ago, AMD released the Ryzen Plus processors, and I was set on getting myself a Ryzen 5 2600. But unfortunately, a little over 5 months ago, my motherboard for my Core i5-3570K died on me. I film and edit videos outside of YouTube, and having my editing rig die on me really sucked because I needed to have my work submitted in a timely fashion to paying clients. Thankfully, a buddy of mine lent me a computer for 2 weeks to edit on, but more importantly, he offered me a sweet Ryzen deal. A Ryzen 7 1700 octa-core processor for $75 US. Yes, that's less than a quad-core Ryzen 3 2200G APU. And this wasn't a used processor pulled out of an old rig. My friend manages an IT service company, and they built a Ryzen system for a client, but they made a duplicate purchase of the Ryzen 7 1700 processor. So they had it locked away behind a glass case, just waiting for a new master. Me. So I was looking for a deal. I got myself a used, like new, Asus ROG Strix X370F motherboard for $148 US from the Amazon warehouse. And this wasn't even the best deal I found at the time, but it was the fastest shipping to get to me in Belize. And when I got it, there was only 2 little bends on the box, but everything inside looked brand new. I also got myself a Corsair Vengeance RGB 16GB DDR4 3200 MHz kit for a whopping $219 US because DDR4 memory is ridiculously expensive. So combined with my used NVIDIA GTX 1060 that I got in January for $269 US, basically when they were selling the 1060 new on Amazon for around 450 bucks at the time, you can slap on 150 US to get my stuff shipped down to Belize, and we're at 861 US. Now I already had my old case and hard drives and monitors, so I didn't need anything else for my build. So here are some benchmark results in different applications that I've used on my Ryzen system, but I don't feel numbers truly can portray the deal that you get with Ryzen. So I'm gonna talk about a few experiences I've noticed compared to my old Intel processor. For editing in Premiere Pro, this is a sweet upgrade over my Core i5-3570K. My 4K H.265 files playback smoothly in my timeline at full quality, something I could never do before. Even editing on a Core i5-6500, I had to put the settings at half quality in order to get a mostly smooth playback experience. Now I know this is not a fair comparison. I have Ryzen 8 cores, 16 threads versus these quad-core processors with no hyper-threading. But dang it, this is a $75 deal that I got compared to the $220 US that I paid for my Core i5-3570K when it was first released. And yes, this is my personal deal, but you can find on Amazon right now for less than $240 US the Ryzen 7 1700, and you can find the new Ryzen 5 2600 for $170 US, and the older Ryzen 5 1600 for $150 US. This competition from AMD makes me smile because on Intel's side, they're selling their Core i5 8400 6-core processor for $200. I never would have expected Intel to sell a 6-core processor for 200 bucks just 2 years ago. Of course, everything's not perfect because Premiere Pro is not the most optimized software, and as soon as I start adding color grading and warp stabilization and other effects, things start to slow down in the playback, at least in those sections. Still, I have some footage where I had to put my camera in a portrait angle to get a head-to-toe shot. I don't know why just putting it into a portrait angle just crushed my 3570K, but it could not play it back smoothly, and it was even crushing the Core i5-6500. But when I saw that playback smoothly without any problems with the Ryzen system, I was happy. Just a little intermission, little secret between me and you. I actually tried filming this earlier in the morning today. It's actually nighttime right now, but I thought I got up early enough, but nope, my daughter said no. And if any of you who do this YouTube grind, you know, you upload videos and you have a family and you have kids, even if you don't have kids and you know you're just trying to work around your family time, you got a noisy sister, brother, or whatever, if you know what I'm talking about, just leave a comment in the description below. Just say, yeah, I feel you. Okay, back on track. With gaming, everything plays smoothly at 1080p, but this is mostly due to my GTX 1060. Honestly, this did not feel much different in the games that I play on my 3570K. It's really unfortunate that my motherboard crashed on my 3570K before I could do some benchmarks with that and the 1060 to compare with my Ryzen system. Overall, without being able to compare the average frames per second and the 1% lows between the two processors, I don't really feel a huge difference. And like I said, this is mostly down to the 1060, especially at the 1080p resolution that I play games at. Also, gaming in general has a long way to go before these octa-core processors are fully utilized to give the best performance in gaming. So really, if you're just focused on gaming, you're better off getting a Ryzen 5 2600 or 1600, or go for Intel's offering in the price range that you're looking at because their higher core clocks offers better gaming performance. Now, if you plan on utilizing all these cores and threads for a virtual machine environment, initially, when Ryzen first launched, there was a lot of VM issues, especially trying to get your GPU pass-through to work. I've read that a lot of things have improved since then, and I'll have an updated video dedicated to this once I get my hypervisor working smoothly. Or even if things don't work out, I'll still have an updated video letting you know my experience with this ASUS motherboard. Overall, I'm very happy with my upgrade to Ryzen. Getting everything set up was smooth, the installation was quick. Getting my memory to the listed clock speed of 3200 MHz was just one click in the UEFI menu. Something that I know was a big issue when Ryzen first launched, but a few months of maturity later and a few BIOS updates later, things just run smooth. Or at least I should say with my ASUS Strix X370F motherboard. And speaking of the motherboard, I'm happy to have support from AMD to the year 2020. I can get the Ryzen 2 processors that come out next year and slap it on my motherboard. This is something that I just couldn't do with my Ivy Bridge setup with Intel, which sucked. You know what? I also didn't have GPU pass-through support with my Intel 3570K either, which just boggled my mind because I paid for the K to get overclocking, get better performance, and the non-K version had the support. That made no sense to me. Why Intel? Why did you do that? 5 years and I still haven't gotten over this. It's just, why? Okay, getting back on track, I need to also work on redundancy with my editing rigs, so I probably won't just buy the Ryzen 2 processor next year. I'll get a whole Ryzen 2 rig, but I'll make a comparison to see using the new motherboard with the new processor versus taking the new processor and sticking it into my X370 motherboard. What are the pros and cons? Of course, that's a long ways away, but you can still look forward to that content on this channel sometime next year. So in other words, click that subscribe and notification button if you're interested in this type of content. Anyways guys, if you're interested in purchasing any of the processors I mentioned in this video as well as my other computer specs, please consider using one of the affiliate links listed in the description below. It provides me with a little kickback that goes towards making new content for this channel. So with AMD having its best quarterly financial profit in 7 years and seeing the timeline that the Ryzen processors are being released, what do you guys think of the Ryzen Deal? Let me know in the comments below. Like I said, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next week.